right on the landing ground.
Thank you for joining us. You are listening to A Radio, and this is the Morning Moment. Please click on the follow button on Spreaker.com. This article is entitled Pressure to Resolve Migration Crisis Could Tear the EU Apart. And this was in the Guardian newspaper, and it goes back a little way, but I think it's as relevant, if not more relevant, right now. And the article was back in January 2016, and I will put a link to it on my website. Some of those I haven't done yet, but they will get done. As so-called refugees are forced upon us using devious and underhanded methods that are cold and calculating, with only one purpose in mind, that is to implement through the back door Agenda 2030, without any real consideration of long-term consequences for the Western world. Their naive belief, or they would have you think that Europe in particular and the West as a whole can absorb what is nothing more than a massive invasion with any long-term effects. All because they must at all costs remain in charge. I have been saying this from the very beginning. This is what it's all about. Nothing more, nothing less. That alone should scare you in Canada. We have a Prime Minister and a party, and dare I say all parties, forcing on to Canadians a massive population shift, because that's what it is, that will literally destroy the culture of Canada, just so he and his party can hold on to power. So, short-term thinking rather than considering the welfare and protection and safety of Canadians. All I ask you to do is please remember this when you come to vote next time. Here is the article. Berlin and Brussels are pushing for a major overhaul on the European asylum policies as the answer to the EU's unprecedented migration crisis. Bitter battles between national governments that threaten to tear the EU apart. A package of interlinked proposals from the European Commission to be unveiled within weeks will call for permanent, obligatory sharing of refugees across the EU as a result of scrapping rules stipulating that asylum seekers have to lodge their claims in the first member country they enter. The rules, known as the Dublin Regulation and dating from the 1990s, are widely viewed as dysfunctional and were abandoned by Angela Merkel last September when she promised Syrians asylum in Germany regardless of where they entered the EU. And that's what caused the stampede. The Commission announced before Christmas that it would table a revision of the Dublin rules in March. Now, to my American friends, table means the opposite of what you think. It means put it forward. In order to do away with them, there has to be an agreement on how to share the refugees pouring into the southern frontline states, such as Greece. This issue is toxic and has already caused the biggest East-West split in the EU since the former Soviet Union, and those blocs continued to join the EU. So what that's saying is that since the Soviet bloc breaking up, those former Soviet countries who joined the EU, and that's a decade ago. EU officials and diplomats say the March proposals will trigger heated rows between national governments. Yeah, you got that right. And this is a quote from them. The system does not work anymore. It was not designed for what we have right now. Hundreds of thousands of refugees, said the ambassador to the EU. We need new rules. We need a new Dublin agreement. Relocation refugee quotas should be a part of the package, but the debate will be very difficult. Now, what I want to say to you about this is that it's not just the EU, it's every Western country is being forced by this unseeing, unknowing hand, and that unknowing hand is the UN, and that's Agenda 2030, to redistribute these third world country refugees, and they're not refugees, This is a way of redistributing wealth and destroying the Western way of life. Now that comes under the code racist, according to people in Canada and Britain and other countries. It's not racist. I don't want to go to be a third world country. I don't want to have people shooting on the streets every day and people being beheaded. That isn't what I came to Canada for. That isn't what Canadians want. But this government and all Western governments are bringing us down to the lowest common denominator. And nobody's prepared to say it. I'll say it, all for the sake of keeping power. Because in this country, power is in the big cities, because that's where the votes are. The same in England. The same in Germany. Look at France recently. The majority of the country, geographically, did not vote for Macron, but the cities did, because that's where the refugees are. And the same will happen in Germany. They nearly won in Britain, but they ran out of time because of the short election period. We have to stop this, otherwise we're going to lose the country. That's not racist. That's a fact. You can find more at aradio.wordpress.com, where you will find links to us on Twitter, Facebook, Instagram, iTunes, Gab, and email. We are continuing to reach out to you, so please pass on the links. Please click on the follow button on Spreaker.com. You can listen to all my morning moments on Spreaker.com under A Radio. That's EHRADIO, A Radio. And please click on the like button. You can find all my podcasts and all my morning moments at aradio.wordpress.com. Click on the Morning Moments tab.